Hello, inappropriate listeners. This is not your usual opener, and I apologize for that. A lot of things have been going on, and we've been shifting things around to make sure that we can start meeting a deadline, at least every 2 weeks. A lot of good people out there put a lot of work into this podcast, and when they're that talented and have a lot of stuff going on, me asking them to spend a good portion of their time on my podcast, which is frankly just a passion project, you wait in line. I've talked to the boys and I've come up with a solution. I'm going to start working with even more talented people everywhere I can. Jokes aside, we're going to start committing to our twice a month releases. That means you might get different bumpers. That might mean you only get Russ and I because I'm sick of Tony and I'm trapped him in his house. All that said, thank you for listening. I'm committed to start bringing this more regularly. And what the hell are we talking about this week? Let's go find out. Do a countdown. I don't like just record. I mean, like,
because Russ wanted a fucking countdown. That's the only reason you have the feature enabled.
I recall us doing all kinds of wacky shit back in the day, trying to count down simultaneously to synchronize your inputs.
Oh, right, yeah. No, I mean, I think they kind of fixed a bit of that. Also, I just now take the full recording and then put that on the bottom and then match up all the mixes to it. And then once I have that, I smash out the other piece. So I don't know. Technology, man. What can I say? It's inappropriate.
There you go.
Gentlemen.
I was looking for like an introductory story from Tony.
Oh yeah, Tony. How's life been?
Life's been good. Rob pulled the trigger too quickly.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly.
And so he cut off our usual pre-podcast chat where I let you in on a
say something like,
story.
And that's how I learned consent applies to even dingoes.
The judges in New Zealand do not take the argument that you weren't worrying a sheep because it didn't look worried terribly well.
That was the sheriff's sheep.
Yeah.
But not the deputies.
So no, I've been good. Got laid off for a third time, so I think I'm now properly qualified for a government job.
I heard they're laying them off too.
Yeah. So just taking the time off, head out to the cabin next week, see what's going on.
Oh, nice. Is it snowy out by the cabin?
No, so it did snow for a little bit. We got like 2 inches of snow, and by lunchtime it had melted away type thing.
Right.
But it, and that's enough. Like anything more than about, I think the imperial term is a 1/15 of an inch. It's enough to shut down the entire Seattle region.
Right.
So people were, Sarah was off school. Like, she's a school teacher, so she was off school for several days and all that sort of thing. The bus drivers were going to have a strike because the conditions were too icy. And
or a stroke. They meant stroke.
But it didn't snow that much out of the cabin. I was looking at the weather, and because the cabin is right in the sort of the lee of the Olympic Peninsula Mountains there, the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So it takes a little bit more time for vapor to get back into the air so that it can turn to snow, because it's dumped it all on the mountains to start with. But it's very nice out there when it snows. It becomes very quiet. The lime pit stops moaning.
I feel like I've not done a good job with that lime pit if it's still moaning.
How about you, Russ?
I've been good. We are officially empty nesters. My youngest went off to Texas A&M just a few weeks ago, so we've got the place to ourselves. It's not
no further details are required.
Yeah, well,
we can move on.
I was gonna say it's not the sex-fueled frenzy that I anticipated. I probably
boo.
Underpants have become even less optional.
Exactly. Yeah. No, nobody wants to see my vision board.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man.
Yeah.
How's the pool doing?
It's still there. Yeah. I mean, it's been, so we had a stretch where it was so cold for so many days that I was like, I could never move any further north than here because I can't handle this. And by so cold for so many days, I mean, it was in the 40s for like a week.
Kill me.
I just couldn't handle it. And it's cold again now, but it's Texas winter. Like we had mid 80s one day and now it's chilly again. But so no, the pool is still there, but probably not ready for me to jump in.
No, yeah. You're not down with the polar bear plunge?
No, exactly. So now I do have a bunch of nerds coming out here in a couple of weeks for a Dungeons and Dragons retreat.
Is that happening? Has it been a year?
No, it's been, so that was, you're thinking of Nerd Weekend.
Oh, okay.
Which we would play D&D if we get around to it, and we never did. This is just the core players from this ongoing campaign, and we will make some progress if I have anything to say about it.
God damn it.
It's a very slow moving campaign because they take half an hour to just make a decision as to going right or left in a hallway. So I really need I'm really looking forward to some focus time with them. Maybe we can
use a whip.
The question is how many 10-foot poles can they fit into their backpack?
Before there's encumbrance
inside a bag of holding.
How many bag of holdings can you put in a bag of holding?
Exactly.
Oh man.
But yeah, some of those jokers are coming for that from Seattle, and they probably will be of the opinion or the mindset that the pool will be open because what with it being Texas and all, it must be swimming weather year round, but they may be in for a surprise.
Yeah, Seattle's pretty chilly too.
Yeah,
I mean we got down to the high 20s, which I think you just fall over and die.
Oh, I can't handle it. Despite my Alaskan origins,
how are you?
It's not for me.
How are you a Boy Scout? I don't get that.
That's true. Cold and wet is a gear problem, but
yeah, I opened a pie shop. I've got raspberry, I've got banana, I've got orange. What else do I got in here? I think I got La Potato in here as well at this point. I got a bunch of different single system boards. Let me start out ambiguous and actually get into what the fuck I've been doing, I guess. But I don't know, been going down that rabbit hole, been working on a lot of pet projects with trying to get to the latest upstream Linux kernel. So and try to get on all these alternate boards. I want to get I want to see Rocky on Raspberry Pi's drop down with their installer. So I've kind of made it my personal mission to get that going. So that's what I've been working on. It is fun. The other side of the room is just chaos of wires and dev boards and
dog hair,
long hair. Yeah.
I have about 15 IMX8 boards here. I think if you want one of those.
Oh yeah, you can kind of see some of it over there.
Actually, no, I think it's only about 5.
I got some Risk 5 stuff as well. I want to work on that next. But first was Raspberry Pi seemed like it should have been the easy road to hoe because everyone uses those and things. No, it's been a pain in the ass. Me and a guy by the name of Brian have been we're trying to work through it.
That's because most of the people who use the Raspberry Pi install one of 3 mainstream releases on it. And you want to install Weirdo Linux, but you don't want to install the stable release. You're installing Weirdo Linux.
It's the upstream kernel. It's not the dev kernel. It's not 2013 or 6.18.
You know that they've turned warning level 0 on, and they've said it compiles, therefore it ships.
Mm-hmm. If it compiles, it ships. I mean, I don't know, but it's been fun. I've been working on that, and then outside of that, I feel like I've been trying to find us a new narrator. I think I'm just going to start releasing without the narrator for now. But I was on Fiverr today, and I started listening to different voices. Oh, should we get up? I started hitting all the British voices up, and I'm like, oh, how bad can we get? But yeah, so I'm just gonna put a little thing in there where
get somebody from New York. Like find somebody from the Bronx.
Hey, I'm podcasting here.
I'm gonna advocate for a different announcer every
time.
week. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Just work your way through all
of them.
Yeah.
Okay, that could work. You know what? I like the cut of your jib on that one. I think it's what we'll try and do.
Yeah, and then as things go, because we're recording so frequently, you're going to run out of ideas. But
I finally, how long it's been? It's been like 2 years, and I finally sent out a meeting request every fortnight for this.
God bless his soul. And I couldn't make the first one we had because I was still driving back from Dart States for darts.
That's okay because that whole missing or having to delay the first time that Tony had actually scheduled the recording session was what reminded me I needed to accept the invite so that I could see the reminder. I had plumb forgot about it by the time you're like, "Oh, can't do it."
Can't do it today.
Thank God.
It's also incredibly on brand for this podcast. It's like, yep, we'll schedule something. No, none of us can make it.
No, come out.
First, I didn't accept the invite because I just procrastinate or I skipped over it and kind of back of mind. And then I didn't accept the invite out of spite because Tony was bitching about it. And then I forgot again.
It's one of those things after 35 years in the corporate world, the modern generation really annoys me where they think the whole concept of replying to a meeting invite is optional. Right? I don't care if you attend or not. I honestly don't. What I care about is that you send it out and then people that may or may not be actually dependent upon, to have the meeting, leave it in this Schrodinger's state until the meeting actually starts.
I mean, who doesn't like a little mystery in life?
Could be there.
I'd be happy to cancel if you can't make it. If you think that your sock drawer needs reorganizing and that's more important, I'm happy to agree with that.
Or
I don't want to be at the meeting either.
They just want to keep their options open. Maybe a better meeting will come along, and you don't want to have committed.
I can't get all married to this one. That's how to play my chances.
They're triple booked. I'm like, there is an option to decline.
I will say nothing gives me more satisfaction than declining a meeting where someone has double booked. I'm like, you understand we have calendars for a reason, right? So
that is actually, I think that's more my pet peeve. If my calendar's open in space, someone puts something there, I'm going to show up. I'm working. That's what I'm doing that day. But when you can actually see that it's blocked off and you fucking put the meeting up there anywhere, that's my pet peeve.
I had to years ago, I had to actually block out the time from 2 a.m. through to 9 a.m. so that people wouldn't schedule meetings in that time. For some reason, the Japanese subsidiary decided that that was my core working hours. And so, like, I get it, gentlemen. I really do. I've come back from the bar because it shuts at 2. There was some email there, so I answered it. Right? I'm like,
you've given an impression that
I get it. You sort of understand that, but time zones exist for a reason.
To be broken, I guess. Yeah, no, for sure. Oh man. So let's see. So I think as far as all that goes, though, I'm going to publish this one like this week, and then we'll just, as we have openings, I'll use some of our backlog on cabins and all those as well. Apparently, the poop smoke episode has been hit up a few times by people. I got a couple messages like, I had to show my friends at work this, and I was like, oh my god. So we're famous for nothing else, at least a cabin that wants to burn down. I still think we should. Are we going to do our infiltration run and fix that thing, Tony?
I think the next time Ross is in Seattle, we should just fix it and not tell anyone.
Just leave it behind that. Yeah.
Leave it behind that little Japanese screen they have in there. And then, whenever we're out at the cabin, we can just go, oh, I'll be back in a moment.
A private throne.
I like this plan. Excellent. All right. So the subject for the day, has been one I've been thinking a lot about, especially the more I talk with friends and a lot of other customers and such. Are people starting to walk away from cloud? Costs, usability, availability of hardware, especially when it starts coming down like GPUs and tensor chips and such. I've kind of really noticed a trend towards this.
I think I think it's probably valuable to sort of think back to when cloud first came out. What were like the big ticket selling points of cloud, right? You didn't have to buy hardware. Some other bugger was going to manage it for you, right?
Right.
And so companies were looking at things and saying, okay, I have one of those big white rooms that has an enormous air conditioner attached to it and a raised floor and big glass windows because you always take the important clients past your data, all your servers and that.
Oh, we're talking about work.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I'm not.
You just described the foyer of Rob's place.
That's right. We call that the room.
His big glass windows are in front of his personal lime pit, and
is that guy in there digging a hole?
And so people sat around and they said, yeah, we can save money, and it really is an attractive proposition when you're staring at a bunch of capex that's like, it's got a budget item, it's a budget line. You can see like X millions of dollars. You can see, we have to staff it 24/7, so that's X people. They have a line attached to it. You can see all those big yearly things. And then some bugger comes along and says, hey, you can rent all that stuff for, $37 a month, right? It made a lot of sense. That was sort of the pitch behind it. Then, the pitch got a little smarter by saying, hey, you release your latest product and suddenly your usage rates spike up. Well, we can give you on-demand resources and things so, that you don't have to pay for. It's not like, okay, I'm going to release V2 of my product. It's big, popular. I've got to buy 17 new servers. I've got to get an extra couple of people to manage them and all that sort of thing. No, it'll just scale as needed, and then when it drops back off, we'll be back down. Those things were big drivers for people to do it. And then on the flip side of that, the cloud people, it's economies of scale. It's like, okay, if I'm building a data center, there is some NRE, some non-recurring engineering costs. There is some baseline costs involved with it. But, the cost of 1,000, and I'm making this number up before anyone in the audience complains, the cost of 1,000 servers and the cost of 2,000 servers, it's not like exponentially more. It's just sort of you double your hardware. So per server, the cost goes down because you're amortizing all of those other costs across it, And then you build up excellence around like what's best practice to manage things. How do I replace stuff? How do we ensure powers? They're all blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot of enthusiasm, I think, for cloud initially. But people have started to realize that, yeah, this monthly cost is a monthly cost. And now they're learning, that their kindergarten teachers didn't lie to them when they said, learn how to multiply by 12. Right. And so they're like, oh shit, and now they're starting to say, well, maybe some of this stuff should be brought back on board because it's cheaper, and they're less mission critical. They don't need that scale. They don't need the big enormous pipe. But the reality is like, I think, you look at like an Exchange server, right? You don't need a massive like 7,000 CPU data center machine to run that. You need like proper IT pro skills and everything to make it not suck. But, it's something that you can say, well, okay, well, rather than paying this premium for all of these added benefits, which we don't really need, we can bring that back on board and save that cost. So I think the hybrid model is becoming more attractive. Now, you add into the fact that, 90% of the world's communications are being copied to either the Chinese Communist Party or the NSA, right? So there's a bunch of companies that are like, well, maybe we should keep our information in-house, and that way it's not being exposed as it's transporting around. So I think there's like a lot of reason for it. You know, I don't think there's like, I don't know. So I'm not a cloud guy, right? So like I didn't work in the cloud industry. I've never deployed production units in anger because I've always been on the software vendor side. You know, my job is to create the anger, not deploy it. And, you know, so I don't know about that, but I don't think it's the cloud stuff is getting shittier. I think people are just starting to realize that there's a premium they're paying for that, and they don't have to pay it all the time.
Right. And I guess I never thought it was getting shittier, but I was wondering if it was starting to go up in cost in general. I don't know. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I get the impression that the costs are, and maybe some of this is, I feel like one of the promises was, well, there's no vendor lock-in, right? And you can just run this instance or move it, or it does, but these things don't really migrate that much. And it's so expensive. It's still a major effort to move from one to another, right? And I feel like once you're sort of locked in, it does seem like the cost can become exorbitant or not competitive with just doing it in-house. And the tools are in place. Go ahead.
I don't understand anyone, Russ, that bought into stuff can be moved around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The lift and shift bullshit.
I'm sure people did. But you know, for God's sake, back in the 90s, we understood that he who owns the API owns the customer. Right? And that was the success. That was the basis of the success of Windows, the apps and everything. You know, so like AWS, yeah, sure, they can host a VM for you. That's not their business. Their business is all these other services they want you to use.
Yeah.
And now you're boned. And I'm not saying Azure's any better or Google.
Right.
Oh,
or whatever.
no, definitely. They all got their secret sauce, right?
They want you to use their API because that's lock-in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think the point you're making, Russ, is that people have now run into that reality of lock-in.
Right. It took a while to get there, but because you're buying into this vision and you're thinking you're doing what all the articles are telling you're supposed to be doing, and then 5, 6, 10 years later, you're realizing, I'm committed, and I didn't. I thought this was a fling.
I always had this big argument with one of the architects when I was working down in Texas, where they continuously railed against. I was very much in the cloud agnostic play for simply some of those reasons. Once you've kind of bought into those pieces, and once you put hard pieces of your infrastructure on top of them, you're now at the mercy of whatever that cloud provider throttles it, tunes it, and frankly, to move it anywhere else, it's a complete rewrite. And I railed against that in every play I could as a CTO there, and I still stand by that even today, especially now with some of the other stuff we're seeing.
Well, how long? It's apps have been built to be platform independent because app devs realized that owning the API, the platform, is important. So people would write their app, and then they'd write a little translation layer that they could then rewrite for each platform. Sure, it's not a great solution because it's extra dev work, it's extra maintenance cost, it's extra perf loss and everything. But it does insulate you to an extent from platform to platform.
Yeah, I actually leaned the other way a little bit when I started looking at tools like React is really good for being able to shift across different UI types between Android, iPhone, web.
Yeah, you get the same shitty experience on every platform.
Exactly. It wasn't like it just needs to work well enough, right?
That's the beauty of JavaScript, right? JavaScript will bone you on any platform.
True. I think that's what we're renaming the podcast. The I think this is like the 80th time we've ripped on JavaScript. but the other side of it, I've also liked what Palomi's
So
done.
our podcast should be agile JavaScript then?
How about inappropriate agile?
The name of our podcast will just be a broken JavaScript string. But Polymia is a nice tool as well. It kind of pulls away from a lot of it allows it to know what cloud it's on, and then kind of does that translation layer for you, so you can still keep making agnostic software.
Oh, so it's doing the same thing as a service that Tony was just describing being embedded in the apps.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you could run it on Azure, or you could run it on AWS or Google Cloud. Or
I like and you talked about it just a minute ago too, about when you were about portability, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's very appealing to me, right? And I think it's driving even some decisions I'm making about what to use personally, right? As a consumer of technology, I'm looking more and more on, well, what's easy how easy is it going to be for me to get out of this, right? Or move to something else, right?
Oh yeah.
And I don't know where I'm going with that, other than that. I feel like that's a driving consideration, right? And I like that.
You were on the road to enshittification.
I was on the road to enshittification. You're exactly right, which has been my obsession lately, I think. But maybe it's just, it's very satisfying to feel independent of a particular, platform or technology or tool or solution, and not not married to something, especially when it becomes expensive, right? And that's part of that enshittification is, first they make a product better than you could possibly make for yourself. So you start using it, and then at that point,
and then they go to a new version of Rancher. Fuck you, Rancher.
And they're just getting everybody locked in, both the businesses that are selling to you and you, the consumer who's on those platforms. Everyone's getting a shitty experience, and there's no moving off of it because everyone's locked in.
I must admit, Russ, that I have become less and less tolerant of products that require a cloud connection when clearly they don't require a cloud connection to work, right? It's like, exactly why does my light bulb need to talk to Philips Cloud to turn on? Should I don't know, because I don't use Philips.
No, you don't
Philips
necessarily
was
need
the only
that.
thing that came to mind.
No, it's a good example, because it's all in the Zigbee radio, and as long as you have Wi-Fi connection to that hub, it doesn't need to go out to work there. The only time you need it is if you're outside of the fucking house. Everything should be able to run off the hub.
And so, I've now been looking at products, and it's like, there's no reason, if I cannot see a reason. This goes back to that old saying that, right, if you
We're
can't
finally
work
to get
out,
off my lawn software again.
No. If you can't work out, if the product is free, you're the product, right? You're really the product, right? It's that old thing. So, like, there is no way in hell that a company can sell you, an oven that requires a cloud service without a subscription, because, you have a continual drain on the company's revenue, right? That you've purchased it once, you're not getting it. So they have to have a subscription at some point. They have to do some way of either showing you ads. Look at like Jeep.
Right. I just saw this about Jeep.
Yeah. Whoa, what?
Oh,
explain.
I just saw this today, that I guess a bunch of Jeep consumers of newer models, I guess, or what's it, Stellaris? Anyway.
Yeah, Stellantis.
Stellantis. Are complaining because when they're come to a stop, the screen in the Jeep starts blasting ads. And you've got to actually hit an X to get out of the ads and get back to your screen.
Wow.
and I'm like, I saw this and I was like, of course they're enshittifying cars now. Of course they are.
Oh my God. No, it's finally happened.
They're trying to go back to saying, well, we're contractually obliged to do this through our partnership with XM or blah, blah, blah. And but I don't think anybody did it much user research on.
You're not contractually obliged to sign that original contract.
Yeah,
right. XM didn't come to you and say, a Cirrus or whatever they're called. Okay, like, no, you have to sign this contract that says show ads, right? And let's move past this. I don't know anyone. I know a lot of people. I don't like a lot of people, but I know a lot of people.
Both of these fair statements.
I don't know anyone that actually uses satellite radio in their car. So apart from somebody looking into what could be the world's second largest money laundering operation,
wait, now I get questions.
What's the first largest?
Yeah,
that would be the U.S. government.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
fair.
It's like you didn't have to sign that contract. Nobody wants that service. Why did you do it? And it's that enshittification, and you were on the right thing, because cloud. I guess the meta point you were making, Russ, is cloud on the path to enshittification?
So I'm glad that Tony's here to clarify my thinking. I got a little lost on the path, but yes, that's exactly right.
This is exactly what I meant.
And also, I've never met anyone who's like, what is really missing from my daily commute is more advertising. Hell.
Do you pay an extra subscription not to have the ads? Is this just becoming the next BMW?
That's the next level of enshittification. Is now you can pay you can get XM Premium and not have the ads turn on when you come to a stop. It's like, that's the whole point. Yeah, that's the whole point. We make the service just the right level of shitty that you either tolerate it, or we make it incrementally more expensive for you to get rid of this annoyance. But you're still paying you're paying more of a subscription.
Well, so Rob, you gave me crap for not buying the YouTube Premium so that I could watch YouTube without ads.
I wouldn't say I give you crap, but yeah, I mean,
you did, because you're like, we can watch it on the TV at the cabin, or well, I don't have YouTube Premium, so I'll just pay it. It's just $14 a month. So I'm paying $14 a month to basically not have ads. I wouldn't buy anything in the ads in the first place. Right? So it's like, no, I refuse to do that.
I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Rob, 14 a month times 12. That buys you a lot of meat thermometers.
I think it buys you one meat thermometer.
It buys you one meat thermometer.
If it shows up.
That's true. If it shows up.
I must admit, I'm super, enthused to get my meat thermometer. I have yet to get the actual email from them that was supposed to come out today saying my meat thermometer has shipped.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
At some point, we got to call Combustion. We should be absolutely sponsored by these fucks. We talk about this stuff almost every time we do get together.
I am really I wanted to use them out. We're heading out to the cabin because it's the midwinter break or whatever they call it for teachers.
They haven't canceled that federal holiday yet.
No, it's the whole, they have a week off in February. And, and I understand it. I used to be at school. I understand what the kids did.
I like how he talks about it like how he was still 40, but in school with kids.
That was before the restraining order.
Apparently, it's only legal if you film your own kids. Right.
These could be mine. I mean, who knows?
But I wanted to take the thing out because I was really intrigued about trying the predictive aspect of it. Right. Because when we used your thermometers out at the cabin the last trip, you didn't do the predictive. You just used the data that was coming out and did it yourself.
Right.
I'm just intrigued to let the system tell me, and just to see what the reality is of like, does it do a good job or not?
I haven't been impressed with it so far. Like, especially when we started doing stuff like throwing whole hunks of meat into gallons of lard to watch it burn.
Having bought the entire city of Belfair out of lard.
There's a large shortage on the West Coast for at least like
still
3 weeks.
Posters with my picture on them at the local grocery store.
Just for anyone that is stuck to the podcast, any listener that is stuck to the podcast this long, we are not joking. Belfair is a small town out, in the sort of east of Seattle, in the Hood Canal, and we bought every packet of lard that was available in the entire town.
I will say, if you are stuck to this podcast, a little lard will help with that.
Absolutely. As we learned.
As long as you're not in Bellevue, then it could be a sticky future.
That's true.
That was fun. I definitely want to play with that again, but yeah, he has. I don't think the guy who owns Combustion hasn't released any really new videos lately. I got to figure out what he's been up to other than making the hot cold coffee thing, which I was like, that's interesting. But
yeah, don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
A very talented man. Don't get me wrong. I just hot cold coffee. Don't care. I'm interested. So to not to drag this back to cloud and enshittification.
Well, I mean, all this combustion stuff works through the cloud.
But
is it talking to your stove?
But this is actually it doesn't need to go to the cloud though. Right.
But it do.
And I think he posted on Reddit that it doesn't go to the cloud if it's on the same Wi-Fi network as the extender.
Well, yes and no. I think the app is still going to the cloud. A lot of the predictive stuff, all those pieces, those definitely I think are on the run through the cloud bit, right? Like
Oh, really? The predictive stuff goes to the cloud? They don't do the math on the phone?
I don't think so. I'll have to do some research. I'm talking a little bit out my ass, but just knowing what I know about how all these apps work, if it's not doing something in the cloud, I would be fucking shocked. Like, no, but as far as
but this is the thing, they don't have a subscription, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you paying a monthly?
No, it's kind of like what you do with Voodoo
or
like that was one of the things that Tony had talked about earlier, and I was curious how he felt about this because like Voodoo, I think now is part of Fandango or whatever. You just buy the movie outright, then you have rights to use it on that site, but you're only paying the one-time fee. So how is that? What are they doing to kind of make up the other side of it? I was curious.
So I didn't comment on the second business model, right? Which is you estimate the amount, like of average, you hire some smart actuarials and you say, how many times are people going to watch this movie in their lives, right? And then you work out what the cost of deploying that movie is. And then you say, okay, well, it's 7 cents every time they watch it. They'll watch this movie 25 times in their life. So therefore, or say, 20 times in their life. So therefore, if we charge $1.40 of additional thing to the price of the movie, we've basically covered ourselves for the cost of a lifetime license to that movie, right? And that's how you do it. But that runs headlong into all those get out there and go, no, we'll sell this for like 4 cents. Buy the movie for 4 cents. And, we'll keep that up until our VC funding runs out. And then we'll put a subscription process on top of that, right? And we're going to gain market share by underpricing something rather than having somebody put a price in it and just offer it for free. Now, I would prefer a company to just say, look, on average, we expect that you will watch this movie 100 times, 50 times in your life. It costs us $1 to sell the movie. So it's whatever the licensing fee is plus $50, done. No subscription, no nothing. You have an account because we've got to verify that you're the person that was watching it. But, just go do it that way, and that, if you remember back, like this is Russ, the get off my goddamn lawn.
I was waiting for that.
If you remember back to like the 80s and the 90s, where shit would dial in on a modem, you didn't pay subscription fees for that. You paid up front for the cost that it would cost them to deliver that service for the expected lifetime of you as a customer. And that's why things were more expensive, but you didn't get it on the back end. Whereas now you sit around and you go, okay, well, let me see, I'm getting it for free, so therefore I'm the product. So they keep, and they are on the path to enshittification, they keep slamming more and more ads in it. In the cloud case, they keep going, okay, well, we're going to take this sliver of the service and increase the price. Now we're going to take this sliver of the service and increase the price, right? Over and over again, and I think that is the real tragedy of what is going on here, is that it is a battle between the sellers in the market teaching the buyers in the market that their offers are bad. And the more the sellers screw the buyers, the smarter the buyers get. And so the sellers have to try and work out new ways to screw the buyers.
And that's where I hear the words that I've never heard before. AWS is the expensive place to be right now, where it wasn't before.
Yeah.
I mean, and then just to wrap up the other side, more and more my YouTube is filled with people building Plex servers more and more now, and also pulling away from a lot of that online content as well, getting away from.
We have to unpack. So your YouTube is full of people building Plex servers.
Yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube.
You're watching YouTubes of people building
Plex servers to take all their data and get it out.
If you haven't worked it out yet, Russ, there is no internal consistency in Rob.
No.
He is capable of holding two diametrically opposed opinions at the same time.
Like anti-materialism and the consistent temperature of the hot dogs on his hot dog roller.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. I got to figure out what I'm doing for dinner. Thanks for reminding me.
Might I recommend something cylindrical?
I think you have. Burritos it is. But to that end, it was why I kind of came up with the notion today.
So outside of the big tech aspect of cloud, are you finding that you yourself are drawn to extricate yourself from cloud technologies as well? Or do you see that happening at a consumer level?
Yeah, because I don't really have a cloud presence whatsoever, other than the apps that I use and the hardware that I have that use it. I don't build. I was building some storage, long-term storage, and Tony and I were talking about this the other day at lunch, where I'm paying $5 a month or whatever to keep consistency for some of my backups, and all I really would need is someone else to put a server at their house or whatever, and then I'd have the third part of my storage game,
right.
1, 2, 3 backups.
And I would be happy to work with you to have our backups either way, because I pay a couple of $100, maybe $300, $400 to Synology every year for a few terabytes of backup, and I would be happy to pay that $300 for a 20 terabyte hard drive and put it in the Duffalo residence, and just ship your thing. Unfortunately, I'm on Comcast, so
here
it is.
I have an asymmetric, 1.5 down, 2 bits up, and it's if I could get, and I'm not going to pay them the $700 a month for symmetric business, right?
I guess I would say you just need eventual consistency on a lot of that, right? Because you're still going to have your local storage and things.
Oh, so, I know. This is not a problem that we couldn't solve, right? We could back it up here, and I could, as much as it would pain me, I could drive to Federal Way
Chuck it out the window
and
as you
give
go by.
you the drive, right? It's like, here is the hard drive, plug it in, right? But it's the, I don't want to be an IT pro. This is part of I think this comes back to what Russ was sort of saying earlier on. I don't want to be an IT pro. I don't want to have to manage this stuff.
Could I run my own email server and back it up and do all of those things? Sure, but
yeah, and in fact, Russ, I used to run a complete stack when I lived on Mercer Island. I ran a complete stack. I had firewall, I had Exchange, I had my website served from it, but things got more and more complex. And it became a full-time job to learn what all the configuration options were and everything. And so I don't want to spend my time doing that. I have but one liver to give to the alcohol industry.
My Tony Bingo card is complete. We got Comcast, Kids on My Lawn. I was just waiting for liver.
Yeah.
We can close up the podcast for another week.
and so, like, I don't want to spend that time to sort of go, well, should I configure this setting true or false? What does this number mean, and what is it going? And that was the problem. And eventually I just said, look, it's become so easy to misconfigure my server that it is no longer worth me running my own server, because it's going to get owned by some hacker somewhere. So I got out of that business. And
I'm wondering if that's coming back around now, because I think it's becoming simplistic enough again, and costs of how many subscription and how much money we're literally just shoveling out the door every month.
Yeah, and with containers, making it maybe a little bit easier to stand that stuff up and deploy it. And
the containers just in my particular case, right? I had separate machines sitting in a rack. It wasn't a rack. It was an old hi-fi, one of those particle board hi-fi towers.
Yeah.
That had, you could put your record player on the top and all your thing, and then at the bottom it had like a cloth, a whole, I don't know what you call it, sort of like a speaker grill type cloth, where you'd put the base at the bottom and everything. So I had my printer in the bottom. I threw that front away, and then I had every server sitting on the whole thing. But the Docker container just replaces the server effectively, right? A virtual machine would replace the server again, but you still have the problem of needing to manage that container or manage that server. And that was my issue, was that I don't want to spend my life as an IT pro.
Right. Well, but Rob's saying maybe some of that's getting simpler. Are you thinking the management of those things is getting simpler?
The management costs can't change. Well, the management costs can change by making things easier to manage, right?
Bingo.
But there's that old thing. You can't have bugs if you don't have features. And so, yeah, sure. A piece of software that goes, I equals 1, exit, right? It's hard to have a bug in that. But once you start doing more complex things,
come
you
across
will
my code again,
bugs.
I see.
And then when you say, well, we've seen some of your code, Rob. So one of the things I did was never buy any piece of hardware that Rob worked on the driver team for. And so
therefore he has a Mac.
But it's not but then you come to options of stuff. Like, it's like, okay, well, connecting to this service requires these 75 options, and these changes here can improve performance, but they might add security vulnerabilities, and a proper IT pro, and this is the value of an IT pro, because a lot of the software industry looks down on IT pros as being second-class citizens, and they're really not,
are.
Right?
Rob?
Sorry.
They're really not, because they have a skill set that You know, because the devs don't care. The devs are like, I put a comment in the code base saying, like, don't turn this on and turn something else on at the same time because that will open every port that you own up, right? And they did their job because they
go about their day.
There, you're right. But the IT pro needs to know not to turn on option A and option B at the same time, or otherwise you have just become the Hong Kong of the US, you know. and so,
he's like, wait, what?
But the point is not to praise. I come here not to praise IT pros. But you know, the point is there's a lot of solutions around solving the hardware problem and the thing, but you're not going to solve that option configuration issue. But, you know, because again, if you outsource that option configuration issue to somebody else, now you're on the upgrade train of every time they discover a flaw, they fix the options. Now you've got to bring it in. You got to deploy it again. You got to move your data. You know, it's the same thing. And I think part of this rant that I got on here, Dennis Miller-like, is part of what's turning people off the cloud stuff. Is they're starting to realize it's not the panacea that they thought it was going to be.
Well, and then you need that. You end up still having to like have an organization that's got deep expertise in a stack. It's just a stack that's largely out of their control, right?
And that's my biggest issue, I guess.
There you go.
Well, gentlemen, I think we've waxed poetic about the cloud long enough for one day. I need to get back to my pie shop. These little fuckers ain't gonna install themselves.
Some baking going on over there.
Everyone down to the pie shop. These things are crazy.
So way back in the day, we had to give we gave all 5,000 attendees at a conference an SD card that had our Windows IoT software on it.
Oh yeah.
I had to drive to Portland, which was the only place that we could find somebody that had an SD card duplicator large enough that we could do the duplication in time to to make it so that we could then take that bag of SD cards down to San Francisco and give them out at this conference. You know, and that's what you need, Rob. Is you need an SD card duplicator. You could just install the OS once.
Oh, yeah.
Stick it in the SD card duplicator and just have it duplicate all 50 of your Pi things.
See, the good news is what Tony's saying here is he knows a guy in Portland.
Yeah.
No. I knew a guy in Portland. This is quite some time ago.
He might still be in Portland. We don't know.
He could still be, but given the fact that his shit was only held together by me fixing it, I suspect that it's probably already broken.
Fair enough. Well, gentlemen, I'm landing this plane. Get the heck out of my yard. I'll see you all next week.
All right. Good luck with the pies.
All right. Catch you, boys.
See ya.
Bye. Well, there you go. Another episode in the can. Hope you enjoyed it. Our show is written by no one, produced by me, Rob DeFallo. Our intro-outro music is Magic Solo. And thank you, listening New Zealand. Cheers.